Yeah, here we go. All right, welcome to
Yeah, go ahead.
welcome to our PadSplit AE market specific Zoom. We have today with us a AE from Jacksonville, Florida. His name is Emanuel Premate. Goes by E, and so
That's right.
we
We noticed you have a really diverse background. Of course, we like to do a little research on everybody before they come in to shine a light on them. And you have been in sales, you've been in healthcare, you've been in the creative world, all kinds of. How did you end up at PadSplit? And I'm actually super curious how your past careers got you to this place.
Sure. So this is the growth room. Welcome to the growth room. It's all about growth mindset in this room. I think it's really important to have a space that you can just go into and focus in on whatever your work is, whether it's finding sub-2 deals or evaluating PadSplit properties, just kind of going in with the mindset of, focusing in on that one thing. So thank you guys for, having me and giving this opportunity to share more about PadSplit, my journey, and how I can help the community. So Emanuel Premate, I go by E. E just keeps it easy. And I am the PadSplit Account Executive here for Jacksonville. So, as you mentioned, Kim, I, do come from a career in sales. I started my journey at GE Healthcare. They have this program called the Commercial Leadership Program. It's one of the most prestigious sales programs, and I came from very humble beginnings. I actually started my journey at 18 years old, really having nothing, no money, no place to live. My father had abandoned me. My mother was 4-time cancer survivor. And so it was really tough times for me starting off my journey. And it was really just through commitment, work ethic, and, doing good for others that allowed me to give opportunity in my own life to then share with others. So started my sales career with GE Healthcare, went through the Commercial Leadership Program. Upon completion, was awarded the Leader Amongst Leaders Award for not only going above and beyond with my sales goals, but also supporting others. We had a cohort of 15. So my goal has always been to, not just achieve the best that I can, but also help others achieve the best that they can in their careers and their journeys. And spent 2 years as an account manager, or actually about 1.5 years as an account manager, Memphis, and then eventually got a lateral move to Jacksonville, working with the enterprise level healthcare, companies and hospitals, huge networks, working multi-million-dollar deals. Did over $30 million in sales orders during my time at GE, and then started to realize that what I was doing wasn't really in alignment with my passion and where I felt I needed to be in life, and felt like I didn't want to let my customers down, my coworkers down, and most importantly not myself down. And so I actually decided to take on my kind of leap of faith last year in February. And at that time, I had started a short-term rental for a family friend who had a spare bedroom, and that's really how my journey started in real estate. She was struggling to make ends meet, and so I said, hey, let's see if we can kind of help you, and in turn we'll cover all expenses. Anything that is extra, that's just going to go for me operating it. And she was all on board with it. So kind of goes to show that you don't really have to come from a lot of money. Doesn't matter where you come from. We have everything that we need. We just have to see it. And so when I made that leap and that jump, I was kind of in a place where I didn't really know what that next move was going to be. I knew I wanted to get more involved into real estate, but I also had this passion for yoga. So I'd been practicing for the last couple of years. I decided to become a yoga teacher and kind of channel more of that meditation and balance in life, and kind of get more involved in the local community in that way as well. And then, stayed involved with the Jacksonville Real Estate Investors Association. I joined that organization after I had moved to Jacksonville in September of 2021. And one thing led to another, then started working for Vacasa as a sales executive. So they're the nation's leading vacation rental management service provider. And, continued to grow and my knowledge in that space and real estate, stay involved, hosting community events. And, then worked with a capital partner to help scale my own short-term rental and medium-term rental portfolio. So we work together. Now we currently have 11 listings here throughout Jacksonville, and we're on the hunt for our first PadSplit. So as of this recording, we don't have it yet, but it is in the works. We are actively looking for one. And but my goal here, as an account executive at PadSplit, really is to help provide value. Over the last 2 years since joining the community, have developed many connections through Jax REIA, through Jack REI and just other local organizations, and want to share that value that I've been able to develop and build in relationships with others in my role here. It's really truly just serving as a guide, helping people understand what the expectations are and the guidelines are for PadSplit. But then also throughout every step of that process, when a need arises or there's a problem or something, kind of helping them guide them through it. Because I think it's all about perspective, seeing that, hey, even if this problem, this kind of challenge, there's a way around it. If I don't have an answer, I'm going to find you an answer. And that's really my goal here.
That's incredibly cool. It's so in line with the whole Sub-2 community and the spirit and the energy of what it is we as real estate investors are wanting to do, and how so many of us ended up in the Sub-2 community and connecting with PadSplit. That the go-giver mentality, the idea of
one of my favorite books, by the way.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. It's talked about a lot. And so you've been in Jacksonville a long time, and that market, because that's what we're talking about today, and
Yes.
is really trying to bring all of this incredible knowledge you have and this experience out. And it's worth mentioning, I think, at this point, just in case this is the first series that people watch about PadSplit, that it's very much about affordable housing and about giving and about solving a crisis, and all of us working together as a community to not only solve that crisis, but to do well financially while solving that crisis. And so that PadSplit journey in Jacksonville, for people who are really interested in that region, what can you share with us about that market, about that's specific to it, different, because we have all these different markets that are core for PadSplit, and PadSplit really wants us all to focus our energy on building out those regions to ensure the success of ongoing development. So what can you tell us about that Jacksonville market that might either attract or deter people from wanting to invest there?
Sure. And one of the things I want to point out, the fact that we are doing good in helping solve for the affordable housing crisis. But one distinction I want to make there is, when you think of affordable housing, you think, government subsidies or something like that. Like PadSplit has taken zero government subsidies. Everything we've done has been self-funded. And where we are today is thanks to community members who believe in the mission. And I sometimes like to even frame it as attainable housing. We're helping people attain housing without even getting, the funding and support from government as of yet. And, not only are we helping them attain a room, but we've already had over 40 members who have gone on to, have stayed at a PadSplit and then gone on to buy their own home. And that number is continuing to grow. So attainable housing is really the mission here, and getting people to find a good place in life. But as far as here, and specifically in Jacksonville, I think, we are, far from the peak. The best is still yet to come here in Jacksonville. There's a ton of great opportunities. Compared to when you look at other parts of Florida, for example, Orlando or Miami or even Tampa, those acquisition costs can be really, really high. And sometimes it's tough to make the numbers work with those high acquisition costs. What I like about Jacksonville is just the overall sense of growth amongst the community here. I know there's a lot of bigger players in this area that are investing billions of dollars in growing the downtown area. Jacksonville Wealth Builders is a local company here that is had a seminar a couple months back that I attended. And, their CEO, the co-founder, Andrew, was there just talking about all the projects that are going on. And I think it's like, when you want to kind of compare it to city, like take, for example, Nashville, right? Before it really popped off and blew off, it wasn't really a place that people traveled to. It wasn't people that were going to, but there was a lot of investment that was put into it. And I think that's what we're seeing here in Jacksonville. We're in a very early phase of a bunch of investment going into the city to continue to grow it from not only local organizations but other companies to drive more people in the workforce here. We have several Amazon fulfillment centers. We have financial service companies that are coming in, and it's really exciting to be a part of the growth here in the city. And when it comes to that, there's going to the need for attainable housing, affordable housing, however you want to phrase it. It's going to continue to grow. Although Jacksonville is, it is a metro city. It's a very spread out city. It's actually, I think, geographically one of the largest geographic cities in the entire nation, if I'm not mistaken. So, that means that, it's very spread out, and we need to be able to make sure that we're able to house these individuals who are moving here. One statistic that really stood out to me when I was, again, doing my research and kind of understanding, hey, where's this need in the marketplace? So currently, as of, today in this recording, there's 802,000 individuals in the working class here in Jacksonville. And of that, 40% make up our target market for PadSplit. So our target market are those income earners who are making between $20,000 to about $60,000 per year. And that's 344,860 people who are within that target market for PadSplit. Guess how many units we have here in Jacksonville as of this recording?
Not enough, but how many?
716. So when I get the question, are we at saturation or something? I'm just like, far from it, man. We're keep on going, keep on growing. And so we did a survey of our members last year in November of 2022, and majority of our members are about 35 years old. That's the average age. And sometimes I get
wait, just a quick question.
Yeah,
Is that the average age for Jacksonville? Because we really want
so
to
it's
click on city.
yeah. Unfortunately, it's not for Jacksonville. We didn't get that specific data,
Okay.
but that is kind of nationwide data. So it's
Okay.
just kind of on average who
Gotcha.
age was. Mhm.
So keep going. I broke your flow. I'm so sorry. You're on.
No,
a-
you're fine.
now.
You're fine. Just the one final thing I want to mention from that survey that because it's something I hear often is, do strangers, that many people really want to live in a place together? And the fact of the matter is, like, one, we hold our hosts to a high standard. We want to make sure that they're providing a quality place. If they're going to be a type of host who's going to be, just not meet that standard, then, we're going to have that discussion with them, see what we can do to improve it. But, we hold our hosts to a standard just as we hold our members to a standard. And so because of that, 91% of the members who stay with us would recommend us to a friend, which is huge.
That is
Yeah,
incredibly
that's great.
huge.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I guess it's important to, if somebody's coming into this and doesn't know that the PadSplit refers to the occupants in these properties as members, because they are members of the PadSplit group. So, and investors are referred to as hosts.
That's correct.
Make sure people understand the
Yeah.
lingo.
Yeah, I
Thank
just want
you
to make sure
for
everybody understands.
pointing that out. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. I love that. I love your reference to attainable housing versus affordable, because I do think there is a shift needs to happen in people's sort of perspective of co-living in general. It's sort of, people have this idea of the American dream and buying their own house, but there's a huge affordability gap in this country and in most of the major cities where people need attainable housing. And I love the way you reference that.
I just before your next question, I just have there's a special place in my heart for that, because people think of affordable or not affordable housing, but co-living as like a step down or a kid's thing, and I personally, my background from an educational perspective is anthropology, and something I know about humans without any question is that we need each other, right? We need company. And so when people aren't necessarily living with a specific partner or their children or people in their lives who fit the model or the American dream, which might be a little bit broken, they're alone, they're solitary, and co-living is, in my opinion, a higher standard of living than living alone. I agree. So I would really love for people to shift the way they think.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you bring this up, because I think it really is like a cultural shift here in the US. And so I'm originally from Croatia. So over there, it's perfectly normal to be living with friends, families in your 30s, sometimes even 40s. And it's just, that's the culture there. But here in the US, there's been this culture where once you're 18, you got to take off from the nest, you got to fly off, you got to be on your own. And if you're living with other people, like, you're not doing well enough in life. But we're going to get to a point where that's going to start to change. And I can even tell you, like, I've personally, I've always had roommates, and the only time I never really had roommates, like, or one roommate, was when I was living in Memphis, and I felt really lonely. To your point, I was like, man, that's just like, I got so used to living with people. So now when I moved to Jax, here I am. I mean, I got my own place. I have a roommate here, and he's cool. He introduced me to surfing, and we have share experiences. So I think there's also that component of, like, yes, you're also going to be doing good, helping people housing, but you're also then helping them on a kind of social level and helping them grow and meeting new connections. I mean, I talked about how, I started my journey with offering a room rental for a family friend. Well, through doing that, she has met people who have then taken her on trips, and she's been able to hang out with people, play skip-bo with cards. And so it's like, it's actually a really great benefit to be able to live with other people. You get to learn from them.
Yeah.
And now it's not perfect. I'm not going to paint it as like, hey, it works out every single time. I certainly don't want to paint that picture. Do we face issues here at PadSplit where members don't get along? 100%. Like it happens. We're humans and that's the nature of it. But one of the really great things that we offer for hosts is the ability to sort of start kind of creating that their own culture in their PadSplit. So when a member is interested in booking a place, one, they have to pay a $19, application fee, which includes an income verification, make sure that they're paying 2 times or earning 2 times the weekly rental rate, a background check to make sure that they haven't had a felony in the last 7 years, and an eviction report to make sure they haven't had more than 1 eviction in the last 7 years. Once they pay for that, then there's also an optional like personality test that they can take. So that's where they can input like, if they're an introvert, extrovert, they can input if they're a night owl or an early riser, they can put the times that they work. So that's all then the hosts then have an option to, turn on a setting where then they can screen the members who are interested in renting their room. So beyond just our checks that we do, then they can see, their profile photo, their name, their age, and just kind of start building that culture
Building
with
community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is there anything specific about Jacksonville that where the communities look different than other core cities? Is there anything like I'm loving this conversation, but I want to keep in mind for the people watching and listening that we're trying to help them decide, is Jacksonville the PadSplit market for them?
Yes. So in terms of just the community here, we have a very diverse community in culture and ethnicity. And so I think that is certainly a great thing, a great benefit that we have here in Jacksonville, even in terms of age as well, wide range of the population. So I think when it comes to that, you're going to be able to create a diverse culture within the PadSplit if you wanted to. But there's a lot of great pockets and areas within Jacksonville that are certainly growing in popularity for PadSplit. A couple that I personally, always recommend for those investors who work more in that acquisition phase, kind of looking for a property, looking at areas like in 32210, that is kind of it's called kind of Jacksonville Heights area, and a little bit kind of west of the river, basically west of the St. John River, 32205 as well. But with 05, there's an area called Riverside where it's a very high acquisition cost. But when you go west of US 17, that's when it starts to make more sense for a PadSplit because you can find some good deals there. And it's close enough to where those service workers who are maybe working in the Riverside area, can commute or travel to. So 1005, and then when you start kind of going even further out west, like in 32221, that's where you have more of the blue collar crowd. That's where you have the Amazon fulfillment centers. That's where you have more of these manufacturing plants. So you can kind of target that market. So I think it's important to understand, hey, what pockets of, Jacksonville are going to be servicing those kind of specific populations of the workforce. When you go to north side area of Jacksonville, like 32218, that's where the airport is located. So you may get a lot of employees from the airport. There's also some, manufacturing centers there and some processing centers. So again, another kind of blue collar area. But then once you start kind of going east of the river, you start looking more in that kind of central part of Jacksonville, like the Arlington area, which is 32211, or even kind of like that town center area in 32246 or 16. You start seeing more of those retail workers and service workers, and even employees from hospitals or schools, because there are more denser populations in those kind of central parts of Jacksonville. And now when I get on the topic of hospitals or schools, sometimes I get asked, oh, well, do you cater to traveling nurses or traveling professionals or students? Not necessarily, because, first of all, the traveling nurses and traveling doctors, those are going to be high income earners. So they're probably not going to be looking for a PadSplit. But think about like the phlebotomist, or think about the custodial workers, or the CNAs, those individuals who are working in the hospital, but not earning that high income as some of those high earners in there. In the schools, again, those professors who are high income earners, and even the students, maybe they don't even have a job, so we wouldn't necessarily be catering for those, because again, we have that income verification. But potentially, maybe there's students, part-time students who work as well, or maybe even some of the lower paid staff at the schools. So those are some things to kind of keep into consideration when you're evaluating PadSplit, because it's not just about the property. I mean, When it comes to the property, we want to, we want to get to at least 5 bedrooms. And typically I see that it's around 1,200 square feet that can, have enough space, and certainly depends on the layout, but 1,200 square feet is kind of a safe bet that we can get to those 5 bedrooms, and no HOAs as well. Try to avoid those. And then when you're looking at like the location, again, you kind of want to look at the parking of the place. You want to look at what's in the nearby area. And also
Wait,
public
we actually had a specific Jacksonville question about parking, because we've been hearing sort of different percentages for different markets, right? I think it was Atlanta, something like 70% of people have cars, but then somewhere else it was 40%. I might have that totally wrong, but what are the right numbers for Jacksonville for that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I will admit that the public transportation system here in Jacksonville is not as robust and as good as other areas like in Atlanta. And so we see that more members do have their own vehicle. A safe bet is to always have at least 50% parking spots of however many rooms you have. So if you have 8 rooms, you want to have at least 4 parking spots. If you can get more, I would recommend it, because that's going to make your place more attractive. And that way you have more space and availability for those who have vehicles.
Yeah, it's and what I mean, talking specifically, you seem to know the neighborhoods very well, or the zip codes, and then within each of these zip codes, you have neighborhoods, like individual streets, and then down to individual properties. And if it's not abundantly clear yet, the value of speaking with an AE in any region, in this case Jacksonville, is abundantly clear. It's
awesome.
Yeah, anybody who's looking to invest in a PadSplit property in a core city, they need to go to their AE and have these conversations and know where they're going, what they're getting into. That's abundantly clear. I just wanted to point that out.
I think you make a really good point about the neighborhood too, as well, because it's not just about the zip code level, but we want to take a look at the neighborhood and see, hey, is this a good for PadSplit? If it's one of those, kind of class B, class A areas where it's, more of that upper middle class, you don't want to have a PadSplit there. It's going to draw attention. But, when you have those, low income earners, or even, just kind of working in the kind of medium range, and, maybe you see some people parking on the side of the street, and, maybe even parking on the yard like that. Those are things we want to take into consideration. I even look at that when I'm like on Google Maps, or if I'm going to be doing a walkthrough. I'm very observant of the space around the place, because we do find that, the biggest challenge hosts face are from neighbor complaints.
Yeah.
And so if you don't draw the attention to, you go into an area where, it's more of a renter population neighborhood versus an owner population neighborhood, you're going to not going to face as many issues.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Let's talk about money for a second.
Let's go. A big smile came on when we talked about money.
yeah. It's a fun topic. What are houses that fit this mold for Jacksonville? What are some, I realize that everything's going to be different. Broad strokes, though, what do they cost from a fix and flip perspective? What are the ARVs? What are people having to put into those to get their conversions and their fixes? What is some of your experience like with investors who you're seeing and guiding? And I know you're doing incredible things to support your investors in making all these decisions. But again, just broad strokes, investors looking at this market, what should they be considering?
Sure. So when it comes to the acquisition cost, I'm seeing most investors are finding those deals at around between $100,000 to $275,000, $300,000 is what we're looking at. And these are properties that do need work. I have some investors who do, want to kind of completely skip that part and just want to get into a fully rehab property. You can do that. Just understand that there's going to be, obviously that premium that you're going to be paying for getting that sort of ready to go rental compared to doing the work yourself. So if you decide to go that route of where you're going to buy that distressed property, I would say that's a safe range to kind of have 100K to 300K max, ideally below 275.
Does that include the fix, or is that just the purchase?
No, that's just the acquisition cost, I'd say. Yeah. So now the acquisition cost is obviously going to be dependent upon the state of the property itself. So I've seen it go as low as $10,000 or upwards of $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 if it's where a full rehab needs to be done with the roof and everything. But again, if that's the case, you're probably acquiring that property for a lot lower price. But one rule of thumb that I was informed of that, is kind of a quick, easy way to analyze properties. And it's not like perfect, but it gives you a good range, is if your all-in cost is less than $35K per room post PadSplit conversion, then your cash on cash return should be at least 10%. So this was something that was shared with me. So this is something that local investors here in
Say
Jacksonville
it
keep in
again,
mind.
because we've talked to a lot of
Sure.
people. This is the first time we've heard this, and it sounds like a really good hack.
It's
Just say
a
the
good
whole
little
thing.
hack. If you ask me to kind of talk through the details of it,
You don't have to
I
do
can't.
that. This
But
is the hack. This is
so
knowledge.
basically, yeah. So I'm going to do it one more time, real slow, and just make sure everybody understands. So, if the all-in cost of a PadSplit home is less than $35K per room post PadSplit conversion, then the estimated cash on cash return should be at least 10% or more. So as an example, if we have a 10-bedroom, so let's say we start with a 6-bedroom home and we can convert it into 10 bedrooms. I'm just using even numbers here for an example. But if you get to 10 bedrooms, we want our, acquisition and a rehab cost to be less than $350,000.
Yeah.
But again, I've seen that that's like a home run. Like, okay, that's good if we can get 35K or below. But I've even seen some investors say, hey, if it's 35 to 40K, as long as it's in a good area, I can see that I'm going to make good earnings on it. Then that will make sense. But that's just kind of a quick, easy way to analyze deals. Obviously, when it comes down to finding an exact property, we want to do a more detailed analysis, but that's kind of a quick and easy way to do it.
Yeah, and I'm sure the room rates and occupancy affect that, obviously.
Certainly. Yeah, that's why it's just a very rough estimate.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know in different cities, there's different kind of cultural expectations about how people are going to live. And I know the base recommendation for PadSplit is 4 bedrooms to 1 bathroom. Do you, what's your stance on that in Jacksonville and how people want to live there?
And typical number of rooms. Some cities, like the structures themselves, because of the nature of the city, you can kind of only get 5 or 6. And then others, it's like this huge expansive space.
Yeah, and kind of going back, like not only do we have a diverse population here, but we have a diverse set of homes here in Jacksonville as well.
Yeah.
We have a PadSplit host here who has an 11-bedroom PadSplit, and some in those kind of double-digit ranges. But I would say, most of the time we're seeing that sweet spot, which we recommend is 6 to 8 bedrooms is what we're seeing the majority of the PadSplit homes here in Jacksonville.
And there's inventory to support that when you're looking at acquisitions.
Yes, there is. Certainly, again, it all comes down to the layout and the total square footage here in Jacksonville. Like right now, inventory is a little bit lower than what it was, let's say, a year and a half ago when, there was a big boom. And but the deals are still there. We have people who are still able to find those properties. It really kind of comes down to, does it fit that PadSplit buy box of having at least 12 square feet and being able to get to at least 5 bedrooms. To your point about the bedroom to bathroom ratio, so obviously we require a 4 to 1, but we've seen a lot better experience when it's a 3 to 1. Now, in some cases, just with the nature of the layout of the home, it's not possible to get to that 3 to 1, and we have to go with that 4 to 1. So just keep that in mind. But there's certain things that you can then do to maybe drive more demand to those rooms. Maybe there's a way to add private entrances to the rooms to make it more attractive, even though they have to share the bathroom. At least I have a private entrance. We have a host here who's putting TVs in all of his PadSplit rooms to make it more attractive. So little things to kind of think creative, or mini fridges as well. He's adding mini fridges into each of the rooms with that as well. So ultimately, like as a host, you get to decide how you want to run your business. As long as you're following our guidelines within PadSplit, then you can get creative. And I was on another podcast last week, and I shared this, that like as we start seeing more hosts come into the marketplace, we're going to start seeing people get more creative. I think competition makes everyone better. And, I think that's what I'm really excited about, is just to see how this evolves, because we're still in the infancy with PadSplit. I still think there's so much more potential and so much more for growth.
Yeah, there is. In terms of the conversions, what, how is Jacksonville with the building department, city permits, or county, or whoever runs it? Like, are they all over a property? If they see a truck out front, are they going to come knocking on the door, or do you guys just recommend doing permits straight away?
Yeah, so I actually literally just yesterday, I had a one-on-one with our chief legal officer, Charles, and basically the way we take our position is that, every jurisdiction is different. I can tell you here in Jacksonville, if a permit is required for the work, we're going to recommend it, right? It's your responsibility as a host to obtain those permits in your jurisdiction. If you
So in Jacksonville specifically, are there, so the reason, this is one of the reasons we're asking is, for example, we have an Airbnb in Ohio, no permits required. You can do anything inside the house. Outside, because it's a historical district, you can't. But anywhere else outside of the historical district, you don't even need a permit to put a door in out of a bedroom that you can see from the exterior. So from some areas require heavy permits. Like Michael built a house in Los Angeles here in an historical district. So you've got craziness when it comes to that. So really just wondering for Jacksonville, like what's it like?
Yeah, so there are historical districts here in Jacksonville as well. So you have the Springfield Historical District, which is 32206. And in that area, there are additional hurdles that you have to jump through. I don't know the exact details, but I you have to go through like their historical district board for,
do you have
permits.
PadSplits there?
We do. We do have PadSplits in Springfield, yeah. So it's doable. Just realize that in those historical districts, there may be additional legwork. Now, I know like one area, I think it's Avondale Historical District and Riverside Historical District. It's almost impossible. It's very challenging. It's very difficult, but those are very high-end properties anyway. So you probably wouldn't be looking for it as a PadSplit to begin with. San Marco as well. Again, that's kind of another high acquisition cost area that you probably wouldn't be looking for a PadSplit in there. But outside of those historical districts, if you're going to be doing any kind of additions, then, obviously definitely want to go with a permit in those. Or if you're doing any kind of electrical work, plumbing, roofing, like pull permits for those. It's worth it. It's in the long term, it's worth it for you as an investor. And actually, as of last year, one of the unique things in Jacksonville that they passed new legislation that allows for ADUs. So ADUs are, I believe the A stands for accessory dwelling units, if I'm not mistaken. So the way it works is you can have an ADU as long as it's 25% of the livable space of the main home, or 750 square feet, whichever one is lesser of the two. So that was a change that was made last year in 2022 to kind of help with the affordable housing crisis we've been having, to have owners add those ADUs. So
is that like a garage conversion? Would a garage conversion, like here in LA, a garage conversion count? You can do that under an ADU guideline. If that's
a really good question that I don't have an answer to right now. I don't want to provide wrong guidance.
Just send it to us. We'll put it in the notes.
I'll take a look at that.
Some cities require covered parking as a requirement for a property, and here in Los Angeles, I believe they've relaxed that requirement and allowed people to turn garages into ADUs for that very reason. Affordable housing.
What about timing? Like how long, again, back to LA, we're wounded, right? We're scarred by Los Angeles. It takes a year, sometimes 2 years to get really basic things through the system. And since from the point of acquisition to the point of getting it listed on PadSplit, such a critical number when we're looking for cash flow, what does that timing look like? How long are you seeing people in Jacksonville taking to get, like, not what's the goal, but what's actually happening?
So I will say it's not years here in Jacksonville, thankfully. It could take a couple weeks to maybe a couple months. I've heard that kind of range from other investors, who've gone to apply for permits. So that's what I provided. It does vary, certainly by what's needed and what kind of permit you're looking to pull. But couple weeks to a couple months is a safe bet. And actually, you know, as of this discussion here, we're going to be doing a PadSplit conversion panel event here on September 14th on Thursday here. And during this event, like that's one of the things we're going to have discussed. I'm bringing in expert panels because again, I may not always have the answer, but I'm going to find people who have that answer. And that's one of the goals I want to focus in on with this event, is to be able to have them speak to, you know, the permitting process and more details around that.
Yeah, and when people come to you with a property and you're able to walk the property with them, and is that the case actually? Are you able to?
Yeah, so you know, certainly when it's like that first pad split that they're going to be doing, I like to take the time to walk with them. If we can't, you know, coordinate a time, then at least doing a video walkthrough.
Yeah.
And sometimes what I'll do is like they'll send me the video, and because I'm quite experienced with like video editing stuff, I'll actually like draw things on the video as I'm like doing a voiceover on it and talking through ideas. Then we kind of go back and forth around that. But if possible, I always like to go in person, but if not, we'll do it virtually through video.
And then do you have within Jacksonville, do you have recommendations on things like general contractors,
Yeah.
or if there's lighter work that needs to be done, like a lesser version of that, and somebody who can throw up some partition walls or add a door or just change out locks in rooms?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
then
So
beyond
just
that, then property management and stuff like that in Jacksonville.
100%. Yeah. So just through my involvement, you know, I have a list of general contractors that, you know, have had experience with PadSplit. You know, one is, you know, a corporate sponsor of the Jacksonville Real Estate Investors Association. So that's where I can help, you know, refer to those contractors who can help with the work that's done, but also, you know, handymen, if that's needed, or, you know, we have a group here within Jacksonville that I'm a part of, where, you know, if there's a need for an electrician or a plumber or something, you know, I can post it in there, and somebody within our community there can help with, you know, in guiding us to who can help us with that problem. So as far as connecting to vendors, that's not a problem. We also have our PadSplit vendor network, and in that vendor network, you know, we have lenders, we have property managers, licensed general contractors. And actually here in Jacksonville, one of our biggest hosts, Jeff Weller, he's the CEO of Coast to Coast Mortgage. You know, he was the first to come into the market with the PadSplit loan. And so the really unique feature about this PadSplit loan is that you're able to finance an already converted PadSplit that, you know, has already had those partitions and walls added, but you can also do a cash out refi as well. So, you know, it's great to have his perspective and someone who's like truly passionate, believes in the product, not only, you know, support our cause and our mission, but then also go on to, you know, create a financial product that helps others in the community. So that's a huge benefit. And in terms of property management, so one of the great things about Jacksonville is that we have 2 keys property management here in Jacksonville. So for those who aren't familiar, you know, we have PadSplit, the platform that's everybody knows, you know, PadSplit 4, but we also have a subsidiary called 2 Keys Property Management. And so 2 Keys Property Management is available in certain core markets. I think as of this recording right now, we're in Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, and Atlanta. And so 2 Keys Property Management is part of PadSplit. They're fully familiar with the model. They have boots on the ground support in each of those cities and areas. And, you know, they are able to provide that, you know, kind of full service property management. If, you know, if someone is, say, out of state, or, you know, doesn't want to, you know, self-manage, that's a great benefit of here in Jackson when it comes to property management. But we also have third-party vendors who are familiar with PadSplit and the model, so that way you can kind of have options if you wanted to shop around and, you know, see what other providers are offering.
So do they do turns and lawn maintenance and
Correct.
handle making sure the place gets cleaned twice a month and kind of they handle everything?
Yes. Yep. They'll handle everything that's needed in terms of the property management, like you mentioned, those contract services, or if there's any maintenance items, that's where 2 Keys Property Management or any other property manager can help you. Because with the platform PadSplit, we'll do your people management, majority of it. We like to kind of say like the 80-20 rule, where, you know, because we've been doing this for 5 years, we have standard operating procedures in place and systems for majority of, you know, the people issues, but there's always those certain things that maybe we just can't cover. We just need a little bit of, you know, host involvement to help out. And that's where, you know, it is truly partnership. But with property managers, they can help with all the on-site maintenance stuff.
And can they, in the case of evictions, which I know it's really low, but in that case, can they represent the property owner when the sheriff comes?
Yes, so they can help with the evictions and represent the property owner if it's needed. Here in Jacksonville, we have a local attorney, Seth Rothstein, who is familiar with the PadSplit model. And as of this recording, I don't want to bench something that ends up changing, but as of this recording, he charges $500 plus filing fees to complete that eviction. And, that certainly has to go through the court. So, some time that has to be spent through that. And once it's signed by the judge, that's, when property manager can help and complete that process. But what I do want to mention that is a very small subset of,
Do you know the percent by any chance? Percent of evictions?
Yeah, not here in Jacksonville specifically. Okay. I know nationally we're at a 3% eviction rate. The average eviction rate for Class C zones of single family homes is 6%.
That's great. Nicely
So
done.
we actually have
that's your
national percentage.
You're twice as good. And what about collections? I've seen some different numbers for different cities. What percent collections do you guys get? So how success is it? 98, 97? If you don't know, fine, we'll put it in the notes later. But some cities it's harder to collect than others, it seems like.
Yeah, so I don't have city specific data, but we, overall nationally, we have 98% collection rate. It was 97%, and then it's jumped up to 98% through some minor enhancements and things that we've improved upon in our systems and processes. And that's one of the things here at PadSplit is that, although we're only, a company of 140 employees now or so, like everybody's so fully committed to this mission, and from the data team to the collections team to our member support team to our host support team, we are all in on this mission together, and always kind of challenging each other and ourselves to see, hey, how can we do things better? How can we do things differently? And striving to do more for our hosts, do more for our members, and consistently improve.
Very cool. Yeah, we see it. I mean, we see it. We see all the hard work you guys are doing. It's really impressive.
Yeah, it is. And you may not be be able to answer this, but when are you guys going to provide insurance for the homes?
Yeah, so we have insurance providers, that provide landlord insurance for PadSplit homes. So
what's that running in Florida? How much is that in not Florida? I'm sorry, in Jacksonville.
In Jacksonville, I'll be fully transparent that I don't know the rate what that's going for. Okay. Right now, we have one provider, OB Insurance. So for those who don't know, insurance in Florida, it's a crap
We've
show.
been hearing.
I'm going to be respectful here. I'm not going to curse. It's a crap show. You know what I'm trying to say, though. It's kind of crazy here in Florida with insurance, just, with all the litigation things going on with government and the attorneys, and it's really inflated the cost for homeowners. So, that's a challenge we have here, but, we're working through it. So we do have OB Insurance who's providing landlord insurance on PadSplit homes. I'm also in discussions with two of the major insurance brokers, here for the real estate investing community, talking through, hey, how can we, offer that insurance coverage? So one of them is offering like a commercial product that's typically used for rooming homes or boarding homes, and then basically having that for PadSplit. That's what Jeff Weller, he has a commercial policy. You have to pay a little bit more for that, but at least you have that peace of mind knowing that you're fully covered. But they are actively having discussions with their providers, and I've sent them our pitch deck, our projections for growth, and I'm getting feedback that, hey, they're excited, they want to get on board with this, they're working on products. So I would say the fact that we only have one insurance provider now, that's going to change very soon, especially as we continue to grow and have that positive impact within the community and with the investors. Other people are going to want to come on board, including other vendors as well. And I think that's really the beautiful thing about PadSplit, is that it's creating this ecosystem where as we grow, others grow as well. Lenders, insurance providers, and even tech providers as well. We saw this, back in the early 2010s with Airbnb when they came into the marketplace, and now what kind of ecosystem that created. And we're on that same mission, is to start creating these ecosystems for mutual growth within the entire community.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
We're just trying to think through any other market specific things. Like, we were researching some of the East Coast properties and thought, oh my gosh, snow removal. How much does snow removal cost? And then, maybe there are lots of cockroaches. And for the couple of times I've been to Florida, I've seen that. As people think about investing and protecting these properties, what are some things that are unique to Jacksonville that that people should be paying attention to?
Sure, that's a great question. So flood zones, there's certainly areas in Jacksonville that are more prone to flooding than others, and particularly when it comes to hurricanes. So we just had Hurricane Idalia move through here. It wasn't too bad, thankfully, because we were on the back end of it. But that is a risk here in Jacksonville, and it could happen. So and there's really nothing you can do to pick a property that's hurricane, it's not going to face the challenge of a hurricane. It's something that every home is subject to here along the coast. But, having, and we send out like hurricane preparation guides to the members, to the hosts as well. So they have that. And, talking with your property manager to see if they can help with, putting in any loose items or anything like that. I think those are the two main considerations when you're looking at Jacksonville, is hurricanes and floods. And if you go with property management, just working with them if that event does happen.
Mm-hmm.
I read something about sinkholes somewhere. Is that a thing, or is that ChatGPT making things up?
No, the sinkholes do happen here. I mean, we are kind of a swampland here in Florida, so it does happen. I would say here in this part in Jacksonville, not as much as like if you go further down south. But it does happen, but I don't think it's like I wouldn't say it's a major issue in Jacksonville.
Okay.
You mentioned that there are some like Amazon fulfillment centers, things like that. Are there other businesses coming in that are planning to move into Jacksonville area that are going to build a huge assembly plant or start employing 5,000 people kind of?
Yeah, so I know that like FIS, they're a financial tech company. They recently built up a new headquarters in downtown. So there's certainly going to be more investment here in the area. I don't have specific companies I can name here. I know FIS and Amazon is growing, but I think there's a lot of potential here. One for PadSplit hosts, but also or potential hosts, but also for businesses. Because of the kind of things that we talked about before, because of the diverse, demographic here, and also just in terms of, the costs here, they're not as high as other parts of Florida. So I would always just kind of recommend just, looking into it, see what's going, and if you can, maybe get in before it's actually fully developed, that business, or it's fully, built. You can kind of get ahead of the game and just staying up to date with current events and where businesses are moving here in Jacksonville. But I know there's a lot of money going into the downtown area. So Springfield, as we talked about before, which that's just north of downtown. And so they're doing a lot of investment and revitalization and just trying to grow that area. But that's not the only area. I mean, all throughout Jacksonville, you're seeing a lot of growth here.
In the housing market in particular?
Yeah.
Single family residences and multifamily.
Correct. Yeah.
Is appreciation higher than the national average, or any more of those sort of money questions? And I also meant to ask you property management, if it's the same across the board with Two Keys, or if Jacksonville has specific rates, and what are the rates?
Yeah. So for property management, it's 8%. Here in Jacksonville. Now, if you're bringing volume, if you're going to do 5+ properties with PadSplit, we'd certainly like to have that discussion and see how we can work with you to get a better rate. But a flat, that rate is 8%. There is an additional charge for turns, but those turns are typically covered by the move-in fee. So every host gets to set their move-in fee to whatever they'd like. We recommend $100 because the
$100 nationwide, or $100 for
nationwide. Yeah, $100 nationwide, because we've found that the average turn cost is about $75. So if you put it at $100 and you subtract the platform fee of 14.75%, that leaves you at $85. So that pretty much covers your turn cost. And then they do offer, like, if you wanted a monthly cleaning service, it's $60 per month for that. Yep, $60 per month at the time of this recording for a monthly cleaning service through Two Keys Management.
Got it. So 8% plus if you want to clean, if you have a bigger place, want to clean it twice a week, another 120. And then turns, but the turns are covered by the fees that we get to set. Makes sense.
Right.
Cool.
And they'll go in and they'll actually like take out the mattress protector and they'll put a new mattress protector on as well. And they'll do a deep clean of the room and the shared space as well. So that's actually a really good point for those who are deciding maybe they want to self-manage. When you do have a turn, don't just clean the room, but clean the shared space as well. And ultimately, I mean, it is the member's responsibility to clean the shared space. But if you're already sending out cleaners to go out there, well, it's certainly worth it to have them clean that shared space. So, that way when that new member comes in, they're not walking into maybe a place that's a little dusty, a little dirty, but it's, fully clean and the room is clean as well. And because that first impression is so key. I think really that's where it does make a big difference. I mean, just think of it as yourself, if you were to walk into a hotel room or any kind of room, wherever, and it's messy, or it's not organized, or space that's not organized, it's just going to throw you off, that initial first impression. So clean the shared space, clean the room on every turn.
Yeah. So that would be like the 75 turn fee plus the 60 cleaning fee. I'm checking to see if I have this right. So really every turn we should pencil in 135 if we want to be great hosts.
Yeah, right. Correct. That's a good,
Okay.
that's a good point. Now I would still recommend talking with two keys. I don't know if that $60 monthly clean fee, or I'm sorry, if the $75 fee for the room includes the shared space clean. If not, but I would recommend speaking with two keys. Again, it's a whole different kind of division of the business. And I'm happy to connect you with them if you work with me and kind of get you introduced to them. But that's actually a good follow-up note that I'm going to ask about, because I didn't even think of that. So thank you for bringing that up.
You're most welcome. What else? We've had so many questions. We've really, I think, talked through a lot of it.
Yeah. So if someone's basically, that coming into PadSplit and they're in Florida, or they want to invest in Florida, and you want them to come to Jacksonville, what kind of differentiates your market from the rest of it, and what would be your best advice to give people to
Sure.
coming
I
in?
think it comes back down to two principles that we discussed earlier in this podcast. One is the big need for attainable housing. We talked about the 344,000 people in the workforce that fit within our target market, and the low amount of PadSplits we have at this time. So there's still huge need for it here in Jacksonville. And then two, I think it's just the potential for growth in the city. As we talked about, there's billions of dollars in investment going into Jacksonville to grow the entire city. And if you can get in now with PadSplit, be able to earn that great monthly cash flow, do good for the community, but then also have the benefit of the appreciation over time, you're going to be set in a really great place. And we've consistently, Jacksonville has been ranked as one of the top places to invest in real estate by Zillow. I think we've been in the top 3 for like the last 2 or 3 years now. Tampa in the #1 spot usually, but the difference between here and Tampa, for example, is you're very likely probably going to be able to get into a property for a lower acquisition cost than in Tampa. There's a lot of competition. I was just talking with an investor based out of Central Florida who was trying to get into Tampa and just could not get a deal, but started coming up here in Jacksonville and started finding more opportunities here. So I think when it comes down to it, the need and the potential for growth is what makes Jacksonville really attractive.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there anything we should have asked that we didn't? Are there any questions you get from investors who are interested in grilling you?
Sure. So sometimes I get asked, like, what is the average weekly rate here in Jacksonville? So right now, as of this recording, we're at about $170. But there's certainly pockets where, the average weekly price is higher, particularly when you go east of the river. You look at 32246, which is that central part close to town center. That's at like $205 average weekly rate. So that's the average weekly room price. The average occupancy right now is kind of hovering around 80%. We recently just had like a really big surge in clip of homes coming on board. So we're investing heavily into, kind of expanding our demand generation. And we see this in every market, kind of when it reaches that pinnacle phase of growth. It happened in Atlanta, 2.5 years ago, where, we saw a little dip in occupancy, but quickly ramped it back up into that 90%.
Well, and Atlanta's operating at something like 98 or basically 100%, isn't it? So that little dip gets offset pretty fast.
It does, yeah, it does. It just takes time, money, and resources from our end, and we're working on, our marketing team is top notch, working on driving that demand. So I wouldn't be too concerned about an 80-ish% occupancy rate here in Jacksonville at this time, because very well, if you're watching this from a year from now or a couple months from now, that's going to be higher. So those are the two key things that I would say come up, and also the average member stay. So we're seeing our members stay on average for about 6 to 8 months here in Jacksonville.
Okay,
That's great.
Yeah.
Medium-term rental range. Yeah.
Cool. Do you have any questions for us?
Oh man. I guess what are you most excited about for the sub-2 community? Like, about the vision and the future plan?
Well, I think the cash flow piece, it's such a hard market, and for I think a lot of the sub-2 community having the opportunity to, including us, having the opportunity to both cash flow and build equity over time. Really, I think what we've heard pretty consistently is that if you can hit about $1,000 a month in cash flow on a property, that's a typical and good. So maybe a little better than average, but a good target. And for so many people, even just 5 or 6 or 8 pad splits, even just 2 doing that could be really meaningfully life-changing. So you're creating all of this accessible housing at the same time, really shifting people's opportunity and outlook in life, like completely, through investing
100%.
in this way. And that's one of the cool things about Jacksonville too. One of our focuses has been figuring out where we can have lower acquisition costs so we can have a greater number in our portfolio. And Jacksonville looks like a good fit for that. I totally just stole the mic.
No,
I love about it.
Yeah, it's everything you said. I think I love the potential of scaling this whole thing and kind of presenting options for people that are scalable, because they are cash flowing, and there are loan products coming that are going to help people get into these properties easier. And as we talk to people, they're kind of, and you guys, everybody, it's happening. It's the ecosystem is growing around PadSplit, and it's kind of amazing to be a part of that.
It is. It's just such a great energy here within the organization. And then when I talk to people, and even when I'm hosting events or attending events, everybody's talking about PadSplits. There's a lot of excitement and buzz. And, it's one of the points I always make to investors that shared housing is nothing new. It's been going on. There's been people who have been doing it on their own. But what PadSplit really enables the everyday investor to be able to do is, become a host and be able to optimize that experience. So you don't have to worry about that marketing and demand generation on your own. We have a whole dedicated system and team for that. You don't have to worry about the screenings. We have an entire system dedicated for that. You don't have to worry so much about the member management. Again, we're going to be able to handle majority of the issues when it comes to the member to members, because we do have so much experience in that space. And then the payment collection as well. When you talk to somebody who's ever self-operated a shared housing investment, it's, you're getting cash payments, you're getting Zelle payments, you're getting payments through Cash App, and it's like keeping track of that within your accounting and everything. Like, it just gets really convoluted and complicated. And that's what always prevented investors from being able to scale with their shared housing investments. But now with PadSplit, this platform, one, not only optimizes it, the experience, but we make it more efficient. But most importantly, we allow you to be able to scale. And we have, hosts who are now, upwards of 20, 30, 40 properties that are able to do this thanks to PadSplit, where if they would have tried to do it on their own, it would have been incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to manage effectively. So that's I think the biggest value proposition, we try to drive home with investors, is that, we allow you to be able to grow with your shared housing portfolio.
Yeah.
Cool beans.
Love it.
Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All your knowledge and the pure love and energy that comes from you couldn't be more clear. And that's exciting.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I truly come from a place of passion and love, and that's what I try to bring with every investor that I work with, and just looking at every problem as an opportunity, and coming down to getting that, going along that hosting journey. So it's been an honor. Definitely appreciate the opportunity, and yeah, do well, do good.
Yeah.
Love
Thank
it.
you. Look forward to hearing more from you.